If you haven't been living under a rock, I'm pretty sure you know that Rodri will not be joining Real Madrid. It's already bad enough that he's going to the rivals, Barcelona, and he used us to make that move happen. But what does it actually mean for the team? What does it mean for Mourinho's Madrid? Because I think this creates a major problem. Especially in the midfield, which we all know was a major issue already in the last season. We saw Tchouaméni and Valverde playing in the double pivot. We saw Arda Güler being pushed to play in the 8, Jude Bellingham being there. Even you know, there is just so many tactical decisions that have to be made. But we just don't have the players in this team to make that happen. So how is the midfield actually going to look like? How are we going to line up? Who's going to play next to each other? Because there is question marks, especially about the double pivot. I think in the number 10 position, it is going to be Jude Bellingham. You know, there's talks about Arda Güler maybe getting in over him or getting some more playing time. But I just think, let's be honest, guys, Mourinho loves Jude Bellingham. I think Jude Bellingham will be starting in this team. Could this open up a new door for Arda Güler to be playing in the double pivot? I don't know. Because there is a lot of reports coming out that Tchouaméni will be one of the players and the other one will be Bernardo Silva. What does that mean for Fede Valverde, which is our captain? I don't really understand the solution of Bernardo Silva being the missing piece. I just don't get it, because we're gonna look at, you know, Federico Valverde's and Bernardo Silva's heat map last season for Manchester City and Real Madrid, and we're gonna see a lot of similarities in this game, and even in the stats, even in, you know, their percentages last season, they look, you know, kind of similar, and they occupy kind of the same spaces on the pitch. And for being completely honest, Tchouaméni and Valverde in these two positions together, they just don't work at all. I don't know why the balance isn't there, because if you look at it on paper, one destroyer, then you have the runner, which can also, you know, do everything on the pitch. He's kind of a box-to-box in Federico Valverde. You have Tchouaméni, who sits above the defense, who is a destroyer, a lot of physicality. It kind of, you know, works. It's a good balance, right? Yeah, but it just doesn't, because the roles of the two players, they just clash with each other. If Tchouaméni got a deep-lying playmaker next to him, it would have been much better. If Rodri played next to Federico Valverde, it could have been much better as well. Because Rodri can do the job that Tchouaméni does defensively. Maybe not up to the same standard, you know, because Tchouaméni, I think it's better defensively. But, of course, Rodri is much better on the ball. He can do the passing. And that opens up more space and opportunities to Federico Valverde in the attack, especially. But he can also help defensively with Rodri. But I just don't see it with Bernardo Silva. Honestly, guys, if I just put Tchouaméni in this team, and we're being completely honest, last season, this was our midfield. Most of the games, it was, you know, Valverde, Tchouaméni, and Arda Güler or Jude Bellingham, because Jude Bellingham was injured a lot last season, especially with the shoulder injury, and then he had, I think, a hamstring injury, maybe something in January. But Tchouaméni and Valverde, they just don't work together. And I know there was a lot of issues on the right side and in the attack especially. So it could have hurt the midfield a lot. And when Trent came in, actually, finally, Federico Valverde looked kind of, you know, just like a changed person. Because they were, you know, changing position a lot. They were helping each other. The right side was suddenly fixed. But the midfield problems were still absolutely present. We could see that the midfield just wasn't balanced, and it doesn't matter if it was Jude Bellingham, Camavinga, Valverde, Tchouaméni, even if Ceballos played, it just doesn't matter. You know, Thiago Pittar came in, he had 2 good games, but then again, once again, the balance came out, because Thiago Pittar wasn't ready for the big games. He was losing a lot of balls, he was, you know, not confident on the ball, and it just didn't work. The balance wasn't there, and it's a fact of we need somebody like Kroos. You're never going to get Toni Kroos in this market, but we need the profile of Toni Kroos, or at least a closer profile. And that's exactly what Rodri is. Because if you look at this, Fede Valverde, I remove him from the team, which is kind of crazy that he's not going to be playing in some people's eyes. You put in Bernardo Silva. What do you get next to Tchouaméni? Because Bernardo Silva, if we look at his heat map next to Federico Valverde's, it's kind of similar, guys. They both like to occupy, yes, the midfield as well, we can see that clearly. But Valverde is a lot on the right side. And you look at Bernardo Silva, he's a lot on the right side as well. So what does that tell you? They are kind of similar. And even if we look at their numbers, you know, Fede Valverde is a lot better in attacking, of course. But the passing is just when you look at these numbers, it's a lot similarities, you know, assist, doesn't matter. That's not how they play, you know. He's better attacking wise. Of course, he gets into the attack more, but assists per game 0.1, 0.2. Expected assists 4.08, 4.74. Big chances created 7.8. When you look at crosses, he has more crosses because he plays with Haaland, let's be honest, but the numbers are kind of similar once again. Interceptions 0.6, 0.7. Tackles 1.4, 1.2. It's kind of similar, you know, they look like the same player and they occupy the same positions. So does Bernardo actually suit Tchouaméni more, or is Bernardo kind of similar to Valverde? And when you look at Valverde playing with Tchouaméni, as I said before, it just doesn't work. But Bernardo's supposed to be the missing piece. I don't get it. And then you look at, okay, Tchouaméni doesn't play and Valverde plays with Bernardo Silva. Now this, for me, is the nightmare midfield, because this is the same situation of Mbappe, Vini, and when Rodrigo was here, when we didn't have Diomande, left side. So now you're dealing with Diomande, who can actually stay on the right side, which we can clearly see at Leipzig, Bernardo drifting to the right, Valverde drifting to the right, and Trent also being an attacking fullback. So we have the same situation we had on the left, just on the right. And the same happens, guys. People need to realize the same thing happens when you put in Arda Güler. Because where does Arda Güler like to occupy the spaces? In the 10, of course, but where does he drift to? The left? Definitely not. He drifts to the right. So when you put him next to Bernardo Silva or Fede Valverde, they all drift to the right. And I don't want to see this again. I saw enough people drifting to the right and drifting to the left the season before. We have had so many issues where players want to play in the same position, same kind of spaces, and there is no balance. And, you know, then you have this situation of Vini doesn't track back, and Cucurella and Huijsen are on an island against a winger like Lamine Yamal, for example, in an El Clasico. And we're seeing this. Sure, we might win some balls on the right. Sure, we might score goals because of this. But when it's a season-long process, you get caught up. You know, the teams figure it out. You get caught lacking, especially defensively, which we have gotten, and especially when it comes to pressing. This is the biggest issue we have had when it comes to pressing. It's not because these players can't press. Let's be honest. These guys are professionals. They have been playing football their whole life. They can press. But the organized press was absolutely horrendous. Because once again, what does Fede Valverde do and Trent does when they play together? Sure, attacking-wise, defensively, it works. Pressing-wise, it doesn't at all. Because Tchouaméni is one of the worst pressing... he doesn't press at all. And when you have Mbappe and Vinicius, who don't want to press together, the whole organization of the team is just... I don't even know how to describe it. Just discombobulated all over the place. Then you have, of course, Yan Diomande, who also defends a little bit more. Once again, what if he drifts here? What if the guys just... I just don't get it. And let's be honest, guys. We still have the problem of Mbappe and Vinicius. And where does Jude Bellingham like to drift more? To the left side. So we could be having a situation of this and this. I'm just not ready for this. I am just not ready to have a left squad, right squad. No midfield. No midfield. Tchouaméni is the only guy that actually wants to stay in the middle. And if you look at Rodri's heat map, Rodri would have been the perfect midfielder for this team. Because where does Rodri like to actually stay? Because Rodri isn't the type of midfielder. What just happened? Rodri isn't the type of midfielder that drifts somewhere. No, Rodri stays in the middle. We can see that in the World Cup. And even if I do a whole season in the Premier League, he just likes to stay in the middle. Because he's a midfielder. Middle. Deep line midfielder who can also be in the attack. He can score goals. He can defend. When you look at his defensive numbers, they are elite. You know, on the same side in interceptions. Much better in tackles. Much better in clearances. Then he's also ground duels won, aerial duels won, was fouled. Just, he generates more possession for the team and he stays in the middle. Once again, Bernardo Silva and Federico Valverde like to occupy the same spaces. And you just have to ask yourself, why didn't we go all out for Rodri and focus on, for example, a guy like Diomande, which... Yes, I think, yes, he can develop great, you know, under Jose Mourinho, and he can help us, especially on the right side, which, yes, we have problems on the right side as well. We have not really had a proper right winger, you know, since like Gareth Bale, because let's be honest, Rodrigo is not a right winger. He's just a guy that wanted to be in the team and had to be on the right, but he wants to be on the left. And his best season probably came when they were playing in a 2-striker formation in a 4-1-2-1-2 under Carlo Ancelotti. Let's be honest, guys. So yes, we have had problems on the right, but I just don't understand 140 million on a guy that's 19 years old when there's Rodri right there on the table. And we go for his teammate, who is considerably a worse choice for us and looks similar to the guys that are already at the club. Likes to drift to the right. I don't know how it's gonna work, honestly. It can maybe it can work. Maybe this can work. I don't know. But I just don't feel right saying Tchouaméni and Bernardo should be starting while Valverde is sitting on the bench. I just don't really understand it. You're at that point where you might be saying to yourself, Valverde might just be better as a right back. He might just be better as a right back for this team. Honestly, guys, I think this works better than Trent being in the team. And it honestly could have even worked better if Yan Diomande wasn't even signed. We signed Rodri, Federico Valverde could have been on the right, and we could be seeing a team that looked like this. That genuinely could have looked like this if we didn't sign Diomande and we put our, balls on the table and actually went for Rodri. We could have did this. Could have not did, this is a clear winner in my eyes over having Diomande. Because we could have kept Endrick on the bench. He could have been in the team. Valverde could have been playing on the right. Let's be honest, guys. Valverde is a better attacker than he is a midfielder. And when he's in the midfield, what does he do best? Attacking. Long shots. Just winning you games. He even has more chances created. He just shouldn't be defending. And what does he do for Trent in this? He can go up there and Valverde can slot in as a right back. But now you have a 140 million winger who's definitely not gonna be sitting on the bench for Federico Valverde. So I just don't understand. And once again, if you look at this midfield with Fede Valverde and Tchouaméni, which we have seen last season, it makes absolutely no sense. Because he's going to be drifting to the right. Diomande is going to be here. Hopefully he doesn't fucking do the job that Rodrigo did. Because when you look at Diomande's positions, he likes to drift to the left as well. There are some clips of him being on the left. Yes, he does great on the right. But Trent, Valverde, and Diomande will be probably occupying some of these same spaces. And that once again puts Jude in a dilemma. Do I attack? Do I help the attack? Do I do, the runs into the box? Do I actually have to be here to help defensively when Valverde, Trent, and Diomande all go into the attack and I'm once again drifting here? Or Vinicius just doesn't return and then I have to do this and suddenly the team looks like this. Guys, suddenly the team looks like this. Because this is what we were seeing defensively last season. Basically a 4-4-2 if we're being completely honest. Because nobody was playing right wing. Nobody was playing that. At the start of the season, it was Franco Mastantuono, which, let's be honest, guys, he wants to drift into the middle and was basically occupying no space because he was absolutely trash. Then Arda Güler was the 10, which Arda Güler defensively was absolutely, he's nowhere to be seen if we're being completely honest. And if you put a guy like Brahim Diaz there, he's not a winger once again because he wants to occupy the same spaces as the number 10 or the tight pockets in the between the fullback and the center back, which is not a winger. Diomande is a winger. But Valverde wants to occupy the same space. Where's the balance? There's no squad building when it comes to these transfers. In the defense, I think we did great. We signed players where we needed replacements or we needed depth. We signed Konate, he can be a starter or he can be on the bench. Cucurella, once again, much better than Carreras. Carreras is an elite bench player. I think he could be off the bench. He's great. He's consistent. He's kind of a 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10 player, which is good enough to the bench. And then you have some more physicality in Dumfries, and Trent is Trent. I think Trent can be a great addition to Jose Mourinho's system if he gets better defensively under Jose. But this midfield just makes no sense. I just don't get it. I think this is a major problem. And even if you look at stats like these, Bernardo Silva next to Tchouaméni, this should work, right, guys? You have more key passes from Bernardo, way more carrying, and then you have the guy that defends more. Possession 1, duels percentage, you have forward passes completed, you have progressive passes, which, he would do more because this is basically a misconception about players that are, you know, deep line playmakers or creative midfielders. Like Bernardo should have more progressive passes, right? No, because Tchouaméni wins the ball, has an interception, and then he does a progressive pass. So basically, he has to have more progressive passes, let's be honest, guys, because the deeper you play as a midfielder, you're gonna have more progressive passes, because almost every single pass you do is gonna be a progressive pass when you are the one that's sitting above the defense. But once again, this is only on paper, guys. If I add Fede Valverde here, Fede Valverde, it's not even last season, because he was playing a lot on the as a right back, and, you know, on the right side, he was playing on the right as well. But when you look at Fede Valverde and Tchouaméni, once again, it should work, right, guys? It's the same situation. More key passes, a lot more carrying, you know, duels, even progressive. He even looks better than Bernardo Silva. Guys, they are the same person. They are literally the same person, just dressed up differently. Honestly, guys, they are. Look at this. Carrying, possession one is absolutely horrendous. Fede Valverde maybe is a little bit more defensive, but they are the same person. Guys, if we were getting Bernardo Silva from 4 years ago, the stats look much different. Look at Bernardo Silva, even a year before that. He's so different. He is such a different midfielder. Like, I don't even understand what happened last season. Maybe they were playing a little bit deeper in some games, but on paper, both should work with Tchouaméni. But we know that on paper doesn't mean anything at Real Madrid, because Mbappe as a striker and Vinicius as a left winger and Rodrigo as a right winger is an elite attacking force. You know, the demonic attacking force. What a front three, right? They can all play on the left, but Rodrigo is a right-sided player. You know, Vinicius can switch up with him. Mbappe can be switching with Vinicius because they are all, you know, kind of on that left side. They can do the job in the attack as the strikers because they play that under Carlo. Well, they clearly cannot, you know. They cannot, because the balance is off. And the same is in the midfield. Even when you look at it from the point of view of last season, the start of the season, it worked out kind of fine, you know, because Fede Valverde wasn't playing well. Because Arda Güler was doing so well in the 10. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that everybody was flaming Valverde in the midfield? Well, let me tell you something. There was actual restrictions on Valverde's game, because he cannot be playing as a double pivot. He has to be... You know what Fede Valverde's best position is? If we played a situation of 2 double pivots and we played like this. We played like Manchester. If you remember how Manchester City played in 23-24 when they won the Champions League, they basically had like 3 defenders here, like this. They had a midfielder, a right back who was basically inverting into the midfield, which was John Stones, and then they had like 4 10s or like wingers/10s and a striker in Haaland. That's where Fede Valverde would absolutely destroy everybody. And we can actually do this with Trent Alexander-Arnold. We can do this at Real Madrid. We can absolutely do this. But it's a question of, once again, the defense. Can they put up with this? Because the center backs is another problem that people are not addressing too much. And I know people want to sign Bastoni, but is it really realistic? I don't know. Can Konate, Huijsen, Rudiger really do a job where, you know, somebody's inverting into the midfield and we convert into a back three under Jose Mourinho? Hell no. Yeah, like, this would be an absolute dream for me. Honestly, guys, I think this would work absolutely perfectly when we would be attacking like this. Because there's 2 midfielders here, which Trent, yes, not the best defensively, but he can also slot into the right when we are, you know, defending. And basically, this would be when we are attacking. This would absolutely cook. Guys, we would have so much attacking force, especially with Valverde, Diomande, who also likes to, you know, defend and help the defense. Jude Bellingham, who's elite at making runs, and Fede Valverde, who just unlocks that by being in the final third, and he can press high, which he's a great presser, he's great physically, he's a great runner once again, and when we are defensive, we can slot back in there, and Valverde can help defensively with Trent. Or I'm just fantasizing, let's be fucking honest. We're probably going to play a 4-4-2 defensively. Vinny's going to be here, Jude Bellingham is going to slot here, Valverde is going to be here, or basically right here, and Vinicius is going to be like this. Like, I'm already seeing it. There's no balance. Even if Bernardo Silva is here, they occupy the same spaces. Arda Güler is going to be, you know, just sitting on the bench for fun. And Endrick is probably going to go on loan because we focused on a 19-year-old for 140 million instead of signing a player that actually wants to be in the middle, which we need. I just don't get it, guys. Is this actually a major problem, or am I just coping? Am I just crying? I don't know. Am I just coping with the transfer? I don't know, guys. I don't know. You know, I'm suggesting to play like City when there's Jose Mourinho at my club, which is probably the most, you know, unchangeable manager of all time. Let me know down below what you think about this. Honestly, I think this is a major issue. We're gonna face some teams that like to play through the middle, and if we don't fix this and there's not more balance in the midfield, I think we're gonna get absolutely ran through, and we're once again gonna be blaming Vinny, Mbappe, and this and that, when clearly the issue is in the midfield and in the defense. Because the defense, once again, if we would have better defenders, if we would have better fullbacks suited for the system last year, I think Xabi Alonso could have worked out. Honestly, guys, I think Xabi Alonso could have worked out with the right players. But it just wasn't meant to be. Is it now going to work out with Jose Mourinho? We just have to wait and see. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Let me know, of course, down below your thoughts on everything I said about Bernardo, Silva, Valverde, Tchouameni, and even Diamande, Rodri, whatever you want to say. I honestly read those comments, and I appreciate you so much. We're getting so close to 4K, so subscribe, like the video as well. If you're on mobile or phone, I don't know why I said mobile, hype the video as well. Thank you so much for watching once again, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.